Well, home. Home sweet home. Home is where the heart is. It's a long, long way home. I've been too far from home. Our literature and our music is filled with the theme of home. Sometimes leaving home, sometimes coming home. What memories or recollections come up in your mind or your heart when you think of the word home? Anyone care to share anything, what you think of when you think of home? People. Yes. Love. The smell of food, cooking, any particular kind or any good stuff. It was always good. It's always good. Belonging. Yes. Laughter. Yeah. Church home. There are different kinds of homes that we experience growing up. I know I've told you before I am an adopted child, and for the first 10 or 11 months of my life I was in a foster home and then adopted into my adoptive home, and then of course married and moved on to other places. And I was pondering yesterday and I started counting the number of different places that I've lived in my short half-century plus life. And I realized I was losing track at about 17. And I thought, I didn't think I was particularly unusual. I mean, it's not that we actually moved far away. Sometimes we were almost in the same neighborhood. But for whatever reason, my mom was, Mom, you'll have to forgive me for saying this, but I sometimes wondered if it was the combination of my mom and dad. My dad liked real estate, and my mom liked decorating homes. So maybe that was just a deadly combination, I don't know. But there was always a reason why we moved, whether it was to accommodate a different space according to the needs of our family, or, well, there was that new construction site, that new development that was very enticing, so off we'd go on a Sunday afternoon to check it out. Next thing you know, Monday morning we were moving there. So my brother always tells the story about coming home one day from university. Now, my brother is very intellectually bright, but do you know that sometimes when you're cerebral, that sometimes the more down-to-earth day-to-day things kind of pass you by? So he came to our home and knocked on the door because his key didn't work and realized we had moved the week prior. And he was having a hard time finding where we had gone. But home. Home means many different things to many different people. And I think for my own experience of home, it was always a loving home. It was always a gracious home. It was always a home of faith, a home of hospitality, and a home of love and care and welcome. So I was very fortunate in that way. Some people were not so lucky. The thought of home does not necessarily conjure positive images or experiences, and so we prayerfully think about those for whom that was their experience of home. But this week in Diana Butler Bass's book, she talks in her chapter about home. And I hadn't really given a lot of deep thought about home or where we choose to live, but I realized there's three significant components to our understanding of home. The first one is presence. Now, hang in with me, I'll explain that. Presence, place, and people. So in our story about Ruth and Naomi, we understand that Ruth had left her home because of her marriage to Naomi's son and became a part of that new, not only family, but traditions, faith, etc. And even when her husband passed away, she had become such a part of that new life and home and household that she couldn't imagine living elsewhere. For her to return home didn't feel like home anymore. She had made the transition. She said, "Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Your home is my home." So she couldn't imagine a life apart from what she had experienced through Naomi and Naomi's son. So I thought in the Jewish tradition, home is very significant. We think of our story of Genesis and the creation of Adam and Eve in the garden. Garden was kind of our original home, our Eden, that place where we dwelled with our Creator. That relationship was so intimate that we shared in the footsteps in that garden with our Creator. And there was a sense of identity and place and belonging and safety and security. But you know, as we humans tend to do, we get itchy feet and we tend to want to wander. And we at times can disregard or think it's unimportant the kind of stability or safety or security that we feel within our home. We want to go and spread our own wings. So no matter what way you look at Eve or Adam's actions around that fateful fruit and decision to leave the garden, the consequence was that they are banished from the garden and they have to leave and head out into the world. And really, almost in a nutshell, the rest of our history of the people of Israel is one of wandering and trying to find that promised land, that home, that time of exile, searching once again for that place of dwelling that balanced that sense of place and God's presence with God's people. So we have exile, we have exodus, constantly trying to return to that once again garden experience of presence, place, and people. And I think as human beings we tend to do that in our own lives, don't we? I mean, in our teachings from Jesus we hear about the prodigal son, and he's got it all made. He's in a wealthy family, he's the older son, everything's set and good for him. What does he do? He wants to take off, explore the world. Didn't work out so well for him, did it? And so he returns once again to his home, to that place and that presence and that people. And I thought about home in our own society today. As I said, when I was growing up, we tended to move a lot, but I had at least 2 aunts and an uncle who I know the house that they moved into when they married, they were in that house when they died. So when I went to visit cousins and what have you, it was always the same house, the same house, the same house. And I was so intrigued by that, because that's not what we did. But home has a significant place for us, because I think I'm going to share with you just a short little quote from Diana's book, which I thought was very intriguing. She said that making a home was a spiritual work of inhabiting new places well and knowing how to open the door to strangers, a means to fill the ache that dwells in human hearts, to belong. I'll read that again. Making a home was a spiritual work of inhabiting new places well and knowing how to open the door to strangers, a means to fill the ache that dwells in human hearts, to belong. I think of our society today that is so mobile. And we would talk about family members that are living on the East Coast, West Coast, anywhere in between. We are a mobile community. We are a global community. So we have family living in other parts of the world now. And how do we maintain that sense of belonging and identity when in many ways we are so dispersed? We are not connected. Even with the help of technology, we are not as connected as we used to be. And I think that's to our detriment. As much as it's wonderful to have the opportunity to live and work in other places in the world, there's something I think that gets lost in having that kind of distance among family or friends. That sense of being a part of a community and knowing your history and knowing the strange attributes or personality quirks that we all get to know and love within our family systems. So I wonder about that in terms of my own family and my children. I wonder, will they end up being somewhat close to home or far away, and what will be the best experience for them to live and grow? Because there are studies that have been done, and they actually feel that to have a sense of place and stability in your life is really important, because it's when you're in those stable places that you can actually grow the most. We think of growth in our current context as happening when we send our young ones out into the world, push them out of the nest, let them go and spread their wings. But there's another metaphor that I read, and they were saying No, actually, it's a little bit like being a plant. A plant is best when it's planted and nurtured in place, and it has a chance to get deep roots, and that's how it can best grow to its potential and strength and bear fruit. So I ponder that because, as I said, we're in a culture where many people are transplanted quite regularly. And so they were saying it's a little bit like the nutrients don't actually get to, you don't get a chance to really get settled and have your roots there to grow to the best of your ability. So it's a bit of a dichotomy, really. Is it best to, we give our children roots and wings? We give them roots and wings with a tether? I'm not sure. But home is a special place when it includes a sense of God's presence. For the Jewish folk, a household was very significant, and it was their tradition to put a mezuzah, a small holder of a scroll of scripture from Deuteronomy, above their threshold. And it was a reminder to them constantly of who they were and the fact that they were children of God and that they would honor God in their household. And so when you walked into that home, you knew that that was a place that not only did that family dwell, but they felt it was a sacred dwelling as well, that God dwelt there with them. And I thought, we don't necessarily name it ourselves, but I think in each of our households we do the same thing. And the way that we can best be a Christian household is to have that same sense of welcome into your home. So we don't necessarily put that mezuzah up over the door, but we offer welcome and hospitality when people come to our homes. And another significant thing is that we gather at table in our homes. That's a place of hospitality. And we kind of mirror that here in our church home when we have our welcome on our lovely glass doors that let people know that they are welcome to be here. And we sung about it in our first hymn, that a place of gratitude and sharing is our communion table when we celebrate together. So there are many images of home that are integral to not only how we live each and every day, just in the practical sense within our families, but also within our faith. We have a sense of the people and the place and the presence. And of course, with our understanding of Jesus that we know as God with us, Emmanuel, that's another sense of that presence. So wherever we go, wherever we are, wherever we make our home, we know that God dwells in us and with us. And we live that out in the way that we go into the world from our homes. And we have a sense of identity that way. The people we relate to, our sense of community here. I think of the many people who gather here that you feel that you've known for so many years, that you've shared bridge games, you've shared weddings of your children, you've shared travel time together, but you've shared also the more difficult times when perhaps a loved one passes away and there are others around you to support you. That's part of our household of faith, our church family here, that we extend that kind of hospitality and grace to one another. So there's presence, and there's people, and there's a set place. I remember when my brother was moving, it tends to be a family thing, I guess, but his two boys were quite young at the time, and they were waiting for a house to come available for them, so they had sold their first house, and so they were staying at a cottage for a month or so in the summer, and then they were going to another friend's house for the last month before they were moving to their own house. And my sister-in-law was rather concerned that they would feel rather confused about, well, where is our home? I don't get this. What's happening? And so she had each of the boys pack a box of their special, couldn't be their most special, because they were going to be in the box, but their special toys. And they said, when we unpack, they traveled with it to the temporary homes, but she said, when we unpack this box in your new bedroom, you'll know that you're home. So I thought that was a neat way to help them to understand that. But place is so important to us. Place as a sense of belonging, perhaps a sense of history, perhaps a sense of memory of people who have been there before with you, that you've shared different celebrations and life passages with, but also a sense of God's presence as a people of faith, that We have been known to be a people on the move, but God has promised to always move with us and dwells with us wherever we may go. But that sense that wherever we live, we know that God is with us, and we travel with God's people as well. So the way that Ruth felt, that you are my people, you are my household, my home, your God will be my God. We share that sense of home, place, presence, community together as a people of faith known here as Trinity United. And we are blessed to live and grow knowing that we have that sense of identity, that sense of place, and that sense of purpose as God guides us on our way. So God bless our home and our families. Amen.